Okay, hello students, virtual learners at home. We have a volunteer student here. Jalen's going to help us with, she's going to be actually filling in the circle maps for us, and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to cover the three industrialists, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Morgan. So here we go.
Although he had little formal education, Andrew Carnegie grew up in a family that believed in the importance of books and learning. The son of a handloom weaver, Carnegie grew up to become one of the wealthiest businessmen in America. At the age of 13, Carnegie's family immigrated to the United States in 1848. They settled in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, and Carnegie went to work in a factory earning $120 a week. The next year, he found a job as a telegraph messenger. Wanting to improve himself, he moved up to a telegraph operator position in 1851. Then he took a job at the Pennsylvania Railroad in 1853. 3 years later, Carnegie was promoted to superintendent. Through this experience, Carnegie learned a lot about the railroad industry and about business in general.
And we've already decided before that it showed that he moved up, to put this in the bubble, he moved up quickly at work. So he moved up in the ranks quickly. What else? Did we put anything else up from that? Okay, so he valued education. Okay, if there's anything you're hearing that's new, go ahead and put it in. Okay?
So he valued
education. Okay, and we'll go back to the reading.
By the 1870s, most of Carnegie's time...
Under the camera.
Sorry. By the 1870s, most of Carnegie's time was dedicated to the steel industry. His business, Carnegie Steel Company, revolutionized steel production in the United States. Carnegie built factories around the country using technology and methods that made manufacturing steel easier, faster, and more productive. Carnegie vertically integrated every step of the manufacturing process. He owned exactly what he needed: the raw materials, shipped, and railroads for transporting the goods, and even coal fields to fuel the steel furnaces. This start-to-finish strategy helped Carnegie become the dominant force in the industry and an extremely wealthy man. Carnegie was willing to make innovation in manufacturing methods and machinery, ready to discard equipment whenever better options came along. He made improvements during years of low demand, so when prosperity returned, he was ready to produce. By 1889, Carnegie Steel Corporation was the largest of its kind in the world.
Okay, so he, when times were slow, he took advantage of that and he upgraded things. He used new innovations. He didn't mess around. He took the opportunity to make things better, so when things picked up, he's ready to go, huh? So what's the big term that we decided was important in that paragraph? Vertical integration. Let's go ahead and put that in the circle, but then we're also going to write it again on the side so that we can make a little diagram. Did we draw that yesterday? We started it in here, huh? Okay, so let's go ahead. Vertical means up and down. So Jalen's going to draw a line up and down. And that means he owned all the steps in making steel. So we're going to put Carnegie Steel monopoly. Vertical integration.
Carnegie Steel.
Okay. It's how he created his monopoly. He owned every step in manufacturing. Okay, that's good. All right, so go ahead and the first dot is going to be that first thing you need is what? The natural resources. So he owned the coal and the oil. I'm sorry, coal and the iron to make steel. He owned those mountains. Dug it out himself. Well, I'm sure he had a lot of workers, right? Yeah, so he didn't have to pay extra for it, did he? Okay, so he saved money there. Then the next step, he owned what?
Steel mills.
The steel mills. So where it's actually made, he owns that too. He's going to be in charge of that. He owns it. He saves money by owning it. And then the next step is he owns all the transportation. So he didn't have to pay extra for that. Railroads and shipping. So he's able to lower his prices. And who can't compete now? Other steel businesses can't compete, and they go out of business. And so he's able to be the last man standing because he lowered the prices, and this is how he creates his steel monopoly. Vertical integration. Let's go back to our reading.
Andrew Carnegie was an intelligent businessman. However, some of his competition called him ruthless. Carnegie was able to negotiate secret rebates from railroads for his steel shipments, enabling an advantage over his competitors. Carnegie profited by raising prices during times of high demand and low supply. Like most of the industrial leaders of this era, Carnegie's labor policies include low wages, long hours, and discouragement of too much union activity.
Okay, so what's the thing that pops out the most there? What pops out most? He was able to negotiate what? Come on, wake up, y'all. Negotiate what?
Secret rebates.
Secret rates. He's going to get a discount on the shipping, okay? So of course he has his own shipping too. But the more stuff you have, the better price you get, right? So the smaller companies can't compete. Okay, so he can be ruthless at times with his competitors. Okay, so you can just put ruthless. Okay, all right, back to the reading.
Some felt that the company's success came at the expense of its workers. The most notable case of this came in 1892, when the company tried to lower wages at the Carnegie Steel plant in Homestead, Pennsylvania. The employees objected and refused to work, starting what has been called the Homestead Strike of 1892. The conflicts between the workers and local managers turned extremely violent after the managers called in guards to break up the strike. While Carnegie was away at the time of strike, he was still held accountable for his manager's actions by many.
What's the main term that pops out?
Strike.
The Homestead Steel Strike. Write that down. We're going to learn more about it when we talk about strikes, but in a nutshell, Carnegie decides to cut wages. The workers go on strike. It becomes very violent. A gunfight between the workers and Carnegie's private police force that he can afford, and they're called the Pinkertons. Write that down, Pinkertons. And just how it sounds, Pinkertons. Okay? And that's his private police force. He hires a manager to go in there and do the dirty work, and he left to Scotland. Because, first of all, he felt bad about it, I'm sure, because did he come from a poor background? Yeah. So he has this manager do it for him, Frick, and it ends in violence. Okay? We'll learn more about it. Do not get it mixed up with the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act gave you what? How many acres? 160 acres if you lived on it for 5 years and made improvements to it. Don't get that mixed up with the Homestead Steel Strike. Homestead is a city in Pennsylvania on this one. Okay? Homestead means your primary residence or your primary property. Okay? All right, so here we go. Back to the reading.
In 1901, Carnegie made a dramatic change in his life. He sold his business to the United States Steel Corporation, started by legendary financier J.P. Morgan. The sale earned his more than $200 million. At the age of 65, Carnegie decided to spend the rest of his life helping others. While he had begun his philanthropic work years earlier by building libraries and making donations, Carnegie expanded his efforts in the 1900s.
Okay, so what pops out? Who bought Carnegie Steel?
J.P.
Morgan. Morgan bought Carnegie Steel, making Carnegie the richest man in the world. Okay? So Carnegie sold his steel industry to Morgan. Okay? Making Carnegie the richest man in the world. Okay? Go back to the reading.
Carnegie also wrote several books and numerous articles. His 1889 article, Wealth, outlined his view that those with great wealth must use their assets to help others and be socially responsible. This was later published as the 1900s book of Gospel of Wealth. People said Carnegie should live their lives in thirds. Give 1/3 of your life to learning, 1/3 to earning, and the last third to giving.
Okay, so what's the name of the book?
Well,
What is the name of the book? No, the whole thing.
19.
The Gospel of what? Of wealth.
Yes, right by the name.
Okay? Now, write it in your book, your circle, and he said, so he's teaching people his own advice on how you should live your life in America. He said your first third of your life should be what? Learning. Put it down underneath it. The first third you should learn. What did he say with the second third of your life? You should earn. And in the last third of your life, you should give back. Okay? So, he had an extraordinary life. Do you think that's a book that you might learn something from? Even in the 21st century? Absolutely. Okay? All right, so you show that 1/3 you learn, 1/3 you earn, and the last third you give back. That's the social gospel of wealth. Okay, go back to the reading. Go ahead and finish the rest of the whole thing, the next two paragraphs.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it all at one shot. Okay, here we go. Eyes on words.
Oh, goodness. Carnegie, as an avid reader for much of his life, and donated approximately $5 million to the New York Public Library. Devoted to learning, he established the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, which is now known as Carnegie Mellon University in 1904. The next year, he created the Carnegie Foundation for the advancement of teaching. With his strong interest to peace, he forced the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in 1910. He made numerous other donations, as well as it is said that more than 2,800 libraries were opened with his support. Besides his business and charitable interests, Carnegie enjoyed traveling and meeting and entertaining leading figures in many fields. He was friends with Matthew Arnold, Mark Twain, William Gadsden, and Theodore Roosevelt. Carnegie died of
Pneumonia.
pneumonia on August 11th, 1919, in Lenox, Massachusetts, with a fortune estimated at $50 million at the time. $500 million at the time of his death. He reportedly left $350 million of that money to be given to charities, organizations, and institutions that he believed in.
Okay, so you need to write the word philanthropy in your circle, and we need to write the main ones. If you think there's a star question about his philanthropy, what would be the number one thing they're probably going to talk about? He built, look at your words, he's known for building libraries, because we read at the beginning that he embraced education. That if you don't like how your life is going, get yourself in a library. Now you have schools, right? Get yourself in a library and learn something and make something of yourself. Okay? His money pays for all sorts of things. Even today, the foundation's still around. I know this. I'm not sure if that program's been here. Can't remember. But Play-Doh is a program that kids can do. Stand up, please. Go ahead, stand up. Okay. Play-Doh is a online program for kids to restore their credit when they mess up in a class. So is that embracing education concept from his grade, right? So that foundation pays for things, and he left how much money? Don't you know it's in the billions now, because money grows, doesn't it? Okay, so they have people that go to work. I work at the Carnegie Foundation, and we figure out where we can help society. That's philanthropy. So put that down, and we're going to go ahead and stop the video. I'll make the other two in the other two classes. Okay, all right.